Before we get started, hit the comments and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Whether you're catching sunrise in Nairobi, burning midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch silently, let me know where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The room fell silent the moment Commander Nalani Reyes lifted her shirt. The air-conditioned briefing hall, once filled with the sharp smell of coffee and metal, turned heavy and still. Beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, her skin revealed deep, jagged scars running across her ribs, old wounds that looked like someone had tried to carve her open and leave her to die. The admirals, commanders, and analysts seated around the long oak table froze mid-breath, their arrogance cracking like thin ice. On the wall behind them, her service record played on a large display. Medals, deployments, flawless evaluations. None of them matched the brutal evidence etched into her body. Admiral Kestrel, the man who had spent weeks calling her unprepared, too emotional, and unfit for leadership, stared at the scars like he'd seen a ghost. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, lost for the first time in his life. Nalani didn't flinch under their shock. She held her shirt up with one hand and pointed to the wounds with the other, her voice steady like the click of a rifle bolt. "This," she said, "is what happened when your intelligence reports failed." The room shifted as dozens of uniforms straightened in shame and discomfort. Admiral Kestrel looked away, jaw tight, eyes burning with something she couldn't read. Fear, guilt, maybe both. "You wanted proof," she continued. "You wanted to know whether I'm ready for this mission. I'm telling you, I already survived it once." Her words echoed against polished steel walls, more powerful than any rank. She slowly lowered her shirt, and the sound of fabric brushing her skin was somehow louder than the ticking clock on the wall. The room still didn't breathe. Nalani stepped back, hands clasped behind her, unshaken. She had shown exactly what they asked for. Then the twist hit the room like a thunderclap. Admiral Kestrel wasn't shocked because the scars were terrifying, he was shocked because he recognized them. His pupils shrank, his hands trembled against the table, and a bead of sweat slid from his temple despite the cold air. Nalani caught it instantly. She narrowed her gaze, stepping closer until her boots echoed through the hall. "You've seen wounds like mine before," she said quietly. "Haven't you?" Kestrel's throat clenched on a dry swallow. No one else noticed, only Nalani, and the terror in his eyes confirmed it. The commanding officers around the table looked confused, waiting for orders, waiting for someone to speak. But Nalani wasn't done. "You know exactly who did this to me," she whispered. "Because you were there." Gasps rippled around the room like a wave, and before anyone could move, red alert sirens blared across the base. The red sirens drowned the room in flashing crimson light, but Nalani didn't move. Everyone else scrambled, papers rushed off tables, boots thundered across the floor, comms lit up with orders. But she kept her eyes locked on Admiral Kestrel, who suddenly looked 20 years older under the emergency lighting. Officers waited for him to issue commands, yet he stayed frozen. Nalani stepped closer, voice low enough for only him to hear. "You know who carved me open," she said. "And I'm going to make you say their name." Kestrel finally tore his gaze away, forcing himself to stand tall. "Commander Reyes, your trauma is affecting your judgment," he snapped, louder than necessary. She smirked, he was trying to regain control. "Trauma doesn't lie," she replied. "People do." Around them, the room emptied, but the tension only grew thicker. Nalani could feel it. Kestrel was hiding more than guilt. Hours earlier, before the briefing, Nalani had stood alone on the observation deck overlooking the coastline of Fort Halifax, the largest naval base in the Pacific Northwest. The ocean wind whipped at her uniform jacket, carrying the sharp smell of salt and fog. She had been told this mission was routine, retrieve stolen encrypted drives from a jungle militia. But nothing about the assignment sat right. The coordinates matched the place she was wounded 2 years ago, an incident that was never added to her official record. Someone erased it. Someone made sure it didn't exist. She remembered waking on a dirt floor in the jungle, ribs shattered, bleeding into the soil while voices around her argued whether she should be finished off or kept alive. She remembered a call sign, *Viper 6 star. Every night since, she had waited for someone to admit that mission was real. Back in the present, Nalani watched Kestrel wipe his brow, his confidence cracking like thin ice under weight. She expected him to yell, to threaten her, to call security, anything to re-establish power. Instead he whispered, "Stop digging. It will destroy you." The desperation in his voice wasn't for her safety, it was for himself. Nalani leaned closer. "You should worry less about destroying me," she whispered, "and more about who's coming to finish the job you covered up." Kestrel's eyes snapped open. She confirmed she knew. Before he could answer, security officers burst in, stationed throughout the room. "Commander Reyes," one announced, "Admiral Kestrel orders you to stand down and report for medical leave." Nalani didn't move. Her pulse remained steady. She stared directly through Kestrel. "If you silence me now," she said, "you'll lose the only person who already survived Viper 6. Kestrel shut his eyes. She hit the truth. Nalani's mind flashed back to the jungle, the night the mission turned into a nightmare. Darkness had swallowed everything, except the stench of burning foliage and the metallic tang of blood. She remembered crawling through the mud, ribs shattered, lungs screaming for air. The militia had called their Operation Viper 6, a name whispered with fear among elite forces. But it wasn't the enemy that haunted her, it was someone she once trusted. A shadow in the trees, a familiar silhouette moving silently, guiding bullets away from her. That figure had saved her life, but the cost was brutal. A scar etched deep into her ribs and a secret erased from all records. She realized now that the person behind Viper 6 wasn't just a phantom enemy. Someone inside the Navy had orchestrated it, someone who wanted her broken or dead, and Kestrel had been involved every step of the way. Back in the briefing hall, Nalani's eyes narrowed. She could feel the officers around her shifting, sensing the tension but too scared to act. Kestrel tried to compose himself, but every muscle betrayed panic. Nalani spoke slowly, deliberately. "Viper 6 wasn't a rogue mission. It was a test. And you failed to protect me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Her words hung like smoke in the air. She recalled the encrypted drive she had recovered weeks earlier, coordinates, logs, and footage proving that Kestrel had covered up the operation to protect a traitor in the ranks. Every medal on her chest, every commendation, didn't matter until the truth came out. Nalani's heartbeat matched the base's emergency sirens, each pulse a reminder of survival and revenge that didn't need bullets, just truth. Kestrel finally spoke, voice cracking. "You don't understand, he was trying to protect classified intel." Nalani tilted her head, lips pressed together. "Classified intel doesn't leave soldiers like me dying in a jungle, abandoned. You covered it up and people suffered. Lives were lost." The room shifted as whispers spread. Officers glanced at one another, uncertain whose side they were on. Nalani stepped forward, the scars along her ribs catching the flickering red light. She lifted her shirt slightly again, just enough to show Kestrel the depth of betrayal, physical evidence of failure that words could never convey. Kestrel swallowed hard, realizing that these weren't wounds that healed quietly, they were proof of truth, of someone surviving a mission that should have killed her. Nalani's calm gaze pierced him. "You can't lie anymore. Not to me. Not to them. Not to anyone." The hall felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Nalani left the briefing hall with her boots echoing across the polished floors, the weight of her scars heavier than her uniform. Outside, the fog from the harbor rolled in, swallowing the base in a gray shroud. Every step toward the restricted archives felt like stepping into a trap, but she had no choice. Someone inside the Navy had betrayed her, and Kestrel had been complicit. She recalled snippets of conversation, whispered orders, subtle nods that didn't align with loyalty. The traitor's name had been hidden in plain sight among her team, masked by rank and respect. Her pulse quickened as she imagined who it could be, each possibility angrier than the last. The base, which had always felt secure, now seemed suffocating, corridors like veins filled with deceit, offices like cells of conspiracy. Nalani knew the only way to survive, and expose the truth, was to uncover every whisper of betrayal before it was too late. Inside the archives, fluorescent lights flickered as Nalani rifled through secure files. Each folder revealed fragments, coded messages, intercepted comms, and travel logs of officers who should have been on routine patrol. One set of encrypted emails made her stomach drop. The traitor had used Kestrel's authorization to reroute weapons shipments and cover up Viper 6 casualties. Names she trusted were listed, but the handwriting of betrayal was subtle, almost invisible. Nalani's hands trembled, not from fear but rage. She pictured the jungle, her own body broken, the suffocating fear that had nearly consumed her. Someone had wanted her dead, wanted her survival erased, and they had almost succeeded. She clenched the folders tightly, scanning each detail like a sniper lining up a shot. There was no turning back. The enemy was closer than she had thought, inside the very ranks that were supposed to protect her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden voice behind her, sharp and cautious. "Commander Reyes?" Nalani spun, hand instinctively reaching toward her sidearm. A young officer, Lieutenant Mara Vey, stepped from the shadows, eyes wide, sweat glistening on her forehead. I can help," Mara stammered. Nalani's gaze softened slightly but stayed guarded. "Why now?" she asked. Mara swallowed, glancing around the archive, then leaned in. "I saw the orders, the rerouted shipments. I knew they'd kill you if you found out. I've been keeping tabs, feeding intel quietly." Nalani studied her for a long moment, measuring the risk. Trust was a weapon as dangerous as any rifle. But Mara's honesty rang true. With the traitor closer than she'd imagined, Nalani realized she couldn't fight alone. She nodded once. "Then we move together. Step wrong and we both die. Step right and the truth comes out." Outside, the fog thickened, masking their departure in shadows. Nalani and Mara moved silently along the harbor's edge, the fog swallowing their shapes as if the world itself conspired to hide them. Shipping containers loomed like silent sentinels, shadows twisting and stretching with the weak floodlights. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. Nalani's fingers brushed the scars along her ribs, a painful reminder of past betrayal, a compass guiding her through the danger. They approached a small docking shed where logs indicated weapons shipments were being rerouted. Inside, muffled voices spoke codes they couldn't yet understand, the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to giving orders. Nalani crouched behind a stack of crates, eyes narrowing. One figure moved with lethal confidence, Kestrel's hidden ally. Her jaw tightened. This was no ordinary traitor. This was someone trained, someone who had infiltrated the Navy to exact precise damage. She whispered to Mara, "Watch and remember. We strike only when the timing is perfect." Inside the shed, crates of ammunition and encrypted drives littered the floor. Nalani watched Kestrel's ally, a tall, wiry man with a hawkish nose and eyes like ice, meticulously checking manifests and scanning for surveillance. Every movement betrayed experience, the kind honed in shadow wars and covert operations. Nalani's chest tightened as memories of Viper 6 flooded back. The screams, the explosions, the betrayal, but this time she wasn't helpless. Mara handed her a small earpiece. "We go live in 10 seconds. Your call?" she whispered. Nalani adjusted her stance, calculating every possible outcome. If she moved too soon, they could be discovered and killed. If she hesitated, evidence might be destroyed. The air was thick with tension, metallic with the scent of fear and diesel. Nalani's pulse became a metronome, counting down the moments until justice could be executed. The plan began. Mara distracted a security camera while Nalani slipped inside, boots silent on the cold concrete. She ducked behind crates, close enough to overhear orders being given to unknown operatives. Her heart pounded as she recognized the code phrases from the Viper 6 files. Confirmation that the same traitor had orchestrated everything from the shadows. Nalani took a deep breath, then raised her sidearm just enough to punctuate authority, stepping into the dim light. "Freeze!" Her voice cracked across the cavernous shed. The hawkish man spun, eyes narrowing in recognition. "Nalani Reyes," he hissed, a mixture of shock and fear. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. Outside, the fog pressed against the walls, a ghostly witness. Nalani's gaze was unflinching, her scars exposed as a silent declaration. "You cannot destroy me, but I can end this." The hawkish man froze, eyes darting between Nalani and Mara, the metallic echo of boots hitting the concrete fading into a tense silence. "You shouldn't be here," he snarled, voice low but dangerous. Nalani stepped closer, showing her scars again, letting the jagged reminders of Viper 6 speak louder than words. "I told you once, I survive what you throw at me. You're out of excuses." Mara moved to seal the exits, ensuring no one could slip out unnoticed. The traitor's composure cracked, fingers twitching toward a concealed sidearm. Nalani's calm gaze never wavered. "Every file you tried to erase, every life you endangered, it's all documented now," she said. The man faltered, the weight of exposure pressing down. He realized that his hidden operations, the coded manipulations and Kestrel's complicity were about to be revealed to everyone. Outside, the fog seemed to pulse in rhythm with Nalani's heartbeat, ominous, tense, alive. Suddenly, Kestrel stormed into the shed, his face pale under the fluorescent light. "Nalani, stop this. You don't understand what you're doing." His voice quivered, betraying panic. Nalani didn't flinch. "I understand perfectly. You covered for him, allowed Viper 6 to happen, and silenced me to protect your secrets. Now everyone sees the truth." Officers hidden nearby began transmitting the confrontation live across secure channels. Kestrel's ally lunged for a weapon, but Nalani was faster, using precise movements honed by years of combat to disarm him in one fluid motion. The air was thick with tension, electric with fear and anticipation. Mara stepped in, securing the traitor while Nalani checked the crates. Inside them were drives, encrypted evidence of operations gone wrong, proofs of deaths that should have been remembered. Kestrel's jaw tightened, knowing that his entire career could collapse in moments. Nalani finally turned her piercing gaze to Kestrel, voice low but firm. "You wanted to control the narrative, hide the truth. But you forgot one thing, you underestimated me." The room's shadows seemed to close around them as Kestrel's defenses crumbled. Officers streamed in, watching live feeds of his complicity, whispers growing into murmurs of shock. Mara handed Nalani a tablet with the encrypted evidence and she projected it on the wall. Documents, video footage, eyewitness logs, all undeniable. Kestrel swallowed, the first tear of fear and regret forming in the corner of his eye. The traitor was restrained, his power nullified, and Nalani's team surrounded her, ready to back her every step. The scars she carried were no longer marks of shame. They were symbols of survival, proof that truth could not be erased. Nalani exhaled, tension easing slightly, but the war wasn't over. Someone else had been watching, waiting in the fog. The fog outside the shed thickened, swirling like a living thing around the base's edges. Nalani's instincts screamed, this confrontation wasn't over. She sensed a presence, subtle yet deliberate, watching from the shadows beyond the floodlights. Mara followed her gaze, voice barely above a whisper, "Someone else, they're out there." Nalani's hand brushed the scars on her ribs, a reflexive reminder that survival required vigilance, precision, and courage. Her team moved silently, taking cover behind crates and barrels, weapons ready. Every shadow seemed to hide a figure, every flicker of light a threat. Nalani's mind raced. Could this be another traitor? Or a rival trying to capitalize on the chaos? She signaled to Mara, eyes sharp, body coiled like a spring. "We can't wait for them to strike. We move first." Her calm voice belied the adrenaline surging through her veins, the same surge that had kept her alive through Viper 6. From the fog emerged a silhouette, figure tall and deliberate, stepping lightly despite the wet ground. Nalani's sidearm was ready, her posture precise, muscles taut. The newcomer's identity became clear as he approached. A former intelligence officer, presumed loyal, now clearly aligned with the traitor network. Nalani's pulse quickened, the betrayal cutting sharper than any wound. "Nalani Reyes," the man said, voice icy, measured. "You're meddling where you shouldn't. Leave now or regret it." Nalani didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, resolute. "I've survived your kind before. I'll survive again. Only this time you won't get away with it." The fog swirled between them, a curtain hiding the lethal potential of every step. Mara signaled, ready to flank, while Nalani edged closer, using the crates as cover, eyes locked on her target. Every second stretched, a silent countdown toward a confrontation that could end lives, or expose the truth. The standoff shattered when a shot rang out from the far side of the dock, ricocheting against metal containers. Nalani dropped, rolling behind cover, heart hammering. The former intelligence officer retaliated, his movements precise, calculating, but Nalani's reflexes were faster. Each flash of movement, each spark of gunfire illuminated her scars briefly, a silent testament to endurance and resilience. She returned fire, not to kill immediately, but to disarm and control the engagement. Mara flanked the enemy from the shadows, cornering him as Nalani pressed forward. The fog thickened further, muffling sounds, creating an otherworldly battlefield. Nalani's voice cut through the chaos. "It ends tonight. Every secret, every betrayal, every life risked, you'll answer for it." The officer froze, realizing he was outmaneuvered. Nalani's scars gleamed under the dim lights, proof she had survived worse, proof that she could turn fear into power. The tension held, every breath a countdown to either victory or disaster. The dockyard had transformed into a war zone. Fog swirled like smoke from burning embers, shadows twisting and distorting every shape. Nalani's team moved with military precision, clearing the remaining operatives loyal to the traitor network. Her scars pressed against her uniform as a reminder that every movement, every decision, carried the weight of survival. Mara covered her six, eyes sharp, breathing controlled, reflecting the same resolve Nalani carried. The traitor and his allies were cornered, crates forming a labyrinth around them. Nalani's voice cut through the chaos. "It's over. Every move you've made to hide your crimes is exposed." The enemy hesitated, realizing the precision and preparation behind her assault. Each footstep Nalani took was deliberate, calculated, as if marking a path toward justice. The tension was palpable, the fog absorbed every sound, amplifying every heartbeat, every whispered order, until the dockyard itself seemed to hold its breath. Kestrel appeared at the edge of the dock, face pale, eyes wide, realizing the consequences of his complicity. "Nalani, you don't understand," he began, but she cut him off, voice unwavering. "I understand perfectly. You risked lives to protect secrets. You allowed Viper 6 to happen. And now everyone knows." Officers streamed in behind her, transmitting evidence live to command channels, proof of cover-ups, rerouted weapons, and falsified reports. The traitors' network had no escape. Nalani advanced, every step echoing against metal walls. Her scars were visible, raw reminders of betrayal and survival, shining under the dock's flickering lights. Kestrel's jaw tightened. He knew exposure was inevitable. He raised his hands in surrender, realizing that ranks and medals meant nothing in the face of undeniable proof. Nalani's gaze was cold but steady. She was justice personified, scars and all, and nothing would stop her from finishing what began with Viper 6. That the final confrontation came when the last operative lunged at Mara, but Nalani's reflexes were instantaneous. She neutralized the threat without hesitation, every movement precise and purposeful. The network was dismantled, the evidence secured, and Kestrel's complicity fully revealed to officers and command. The fog thinned, revealing the morning sun breaking through the harbor mist, painting the dock in gold and gray. Nalani lowered her weapon and exhaled, tension finally releasing in slow waves. Mara approached, nodding, their unspoken acknowledgement binding them as allies forged in the crucible of danger. Kestrel, stripped of power and respect, was escorted away under guard, face pale with the realization that truth could never be buried. Nalani's scars glimmered under the sunlight, not as wounds but as symbols of survival, endurance, and resilience. She had faced betrayal, danger, and death itself, and emerged not only alive but victorious, the secrets of Viper 6 finally exposed to the world. The harbor was quiet now, the chaos replaced by an eerie calm. Nalani stood at the edge of the dock, the morning sun slicing through lingering fog, casting long shadows over rusted metal and puddles of seawater. Kestrel was escorted nearby, handcuffed, head lowered, every inch of his carefully built authority stripped bare. But Nalani's eyes were not on him. They were on the scars she carried, reminders of every secret, every betrayal, and every life risked because of lies. She could feel the weight of command pressing down again, the choice that had been haunting her since Viper 6. Justice, mercy, or revelation. Mara stayed at her side, tense but loyal, understanding that the next move would define more than their careers, it would define legacies. Nalani's heartbeat matched the rhythm of the waves against the hulls, slow and deliberate, ready to strike, ready to reveal the final truth. Kestrel finally looked up, eyes meeting hers, pleading and defiant all at once. "Nalani, you don't know what will happen if you—" His voice cracked. Nalani stepped forward, calm and unyielding, her uniform crisp despite the night's chaos. "I know exactly what will happen," she said, lifting her arm to reveal her scars once more. "Every wound, every betrayal, every cover-up is visible. And I am the proof." The officers around them leaned closer, watching history unfold in real time. Nalani activated the secure broadcast, sending evidence of Kestrel's complicity, the traitors' network, and the erased Viper 6 mission to the highest echelons of command. Gasps spread across screens worldwide. Kestrel's face went pale, realizing that survival and rank could not shield him from exposure. Nalani's calm voice resonated through the harbor. Truth doesn't care about medals, only survival and justice. And I survived everything you tried to hide. Then came the twist. Nalani revealed the final piece no one had expected. She removed a folder from her jacket, holding it out to Mara. "This isn't just Kestrel's betrayal," she said, voice steady but sharp. "It's part of a larger operation, one that touches multiple bases, multiple nations. Viper 6 was never just a mission. It was a test of loyalty, and a warning of what happens when trust is broken." Mara's eyes widened, realizing the scope. Nalani turned to Kestrel, her expression unreadable. "You underestimated me because you thought I was just a survivor. I am more than that. I am the proof. And the world will know it." Kestrel's knees buckled slightly, the weight of inevitability crashing down. Nalani had survived, exposed, and risen above betrayal, but the revelation hinted that the fight for truth wasn't over, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding for what comes next. The sun climbed higher, burning away the remnants of fog over Fort Halifax, painting the dockyard in gold and steel. Nalani stood tall, scars exposed, uniform immaculate, commanding attention without a single word. Officers gathered around, recording, watching, and whispering as Kestrel was led away under strict guard, his face pale, lips pressed tight. But Nalani's gaze drifted beyond him, toward the horizon where ships awaited orders, and lives depended on integrity, courage, and the truth. Mara approached, handing over the final set of encrypted drives, evidence that confirmed not just the Viper 6 cover-up but the network of betrayal spanning multiple bases. Nalani exhaled slowly, letting the weight of years of secrecy, survival, and hidden pain lift slightly. The scars that once represented humiliation and near death now glowed as symbols of endurance, survival, and justice. Every breath, every heartbeat, affirmed that she had not only survived, but had ensured the truth would prevail. Nalani addressed the gathered officers, voice steady yet resolute, every word carrying the weight of experience and defiance. You were taught to follow orders. You were taught to trust leadership. But leadership failed. Viper 6 was erased from records, lives were risked, and loyalty was exploited. Today that ends. The truth is here and it cannot be denied. Screens around the base projected files, videos, and testimonies, confirming her words. Officers murmured, some in disbelief, some in respect, all understanding the depth of betrayal. Kestrel, escorted through the dockyard, finally understood. The authority he clung to meant nothing against the undeniable evidence Nalani had risked everything to preserve. The former admiral's eyes met hers for one last time, a silent acknowledgement. She had survived and justice had been served. Nalani's scars gleamed under sunlight, no longer marks of suffering, but proof that survival and courage could outlast deception. As the final reports were transmitted to command, Nalani stepped to the edge of the harbor, looking out over the waves. Mara stood beside her, silent, sharing the quiet triumph of survival and victory. Nalani touched her scars, letting sunlight warm the jagged reminders of her past, and smiled faintly. "We've done it," Mara said softly. Nalani nodded, voice calm, carrying both relief and strength. "The world knows the truth now. And I survived it all." Behind them, officers filed reports, Kestrel's network dismantled, lives saved, secrets exposed. The dockyard, once a place of fog, fear, and betrayal, now felt open, alive, and honest. Nalani turned, looking at the rising sun, and knew her scars would always remind her. Survival wasn't enough. You had to confront lies, face betrayal, and rise stronger. Viper 6, once hidden in shadows, had finally become a testament to courage, resilience, and the power of truth. Justice had been delivered, and Nalani's story would never be erased.